Hi everybody. Today I'd like to discourse on the Aquarian Gospel, and what it does, it actually addresses and makes us look at the missing 18 years of Jesus's life. And I find that this is quite a interesting and controversial subject, because the modern Bible that we have today, this is like perhaps my oldest Bible that I have in my library here. It was recorded to be in 1828, but it's actually older than that. And every single page in this book here, if you open it up at any page, it's highly illustrated. So I love reading this Bible, and I love the meaning of Christianity. But we also need to understand why when Jesus was born to Mary and Joseph, the first 12 years of his life was he was with his family. He became a carpenter, and then suddenly at the age of 12, when you read in this Bible, Jesus is 30 years old and he's healing and teaching. So the question that arises is, what happened to those missing 18 years? So apparently we have some interesting stories of other manuscripts. So this claims to be channeled from what they call the Akashic records. And we're going to talk a bit about what Akasha means. Akasha means spirit. It's a spirit library. It's a vibrational record of every history, every thought, every experience that's ever happened on the world. There's a record of everything. So this person here, Levi Dowling, it's just got Levi here, but Levi Dowling published this in 1908. So we could call it like channeled or remembering the records. But he was inspired by another, so Levi was inspired by a Russian name, a person, maybe not Russian, but I think living in America. His name was Notovich. So Notovich had written stories that he'd been to Tibet, and he got access to the manuscripts of the missing 18 years of Jesus' life. So Notovich wrote this book called The Unknown Life of Jesus Christ. And it's interesting that the manuscripts where he found the manuscripts in a remote part of Tibet was called Hemis in Ladakh. And it's interesting, my partner at the time, Rena, and myself, and we had a little baby, Minka, she was only 1.5. We actually visited this remote monastery in Hemis in Ladakh. And it's perhaps one of the most special times in my whole life, where we were seeking symbolically ancient knowledge and living with the Buddhist people. Now this is interesting because Buddhism, we're going to see, don't believe in a God. So I don't want to confuse everyone, but first of all, we're going to look at Jesus's life. And in this book it says that Jesus learned Buddhism in Tibet. They even believe that Jesus died in Kashmir, that there's a grave for Jesus in Kashmir. He went to Egypt to study with the pharaohs. He went to Persia, which is known as Iran today. And of course, he even went to Macedonia, like Alexander the Great time. So there's all these incredible stories of how Jesus did his homework. He traveled the world. He was exposed to multi-religions. And this is what made his religion like the law of one. So here we have Jesus emerging out of what we call a yoni. The yoni is the portal, the gateway of creation. So we have Jesus here sitting and he's doing this mudra. He's doing a very special hand signal that connects him to the source. And so that's the spiritual, and the other hand is holding a book. So in the book here, I put the symbol of the golden ratio, phi, because I'm obsessed about the mysteries of the golden ratio, which is a trinity. So I just wanted to express that Jesus had his initiation because he traveled the world, and those missing 18 years of his life, I believe, are critical, because in sacred geometry, it's about remembering who we are, where we came from. So the story of Jesus's life, I believe, is so critical. So we have to ask questions. What happened to those manuscripts? Are they in the Vatican today? Why did they suppress them? And I believe they were suppressed because the original prayers in this Bible weren't saying, "Our Father who art in heaven." They were actually saying, "Our Father and Mother, the Abba and the Amma, that art above and within," was so powerful and connecting us to a universe of all creation, not kind of a patriarchal expression of divinity. Because the sad thing on this three-dimensional plane is that whoever wins the war, they write the history books. Whoever wins the war deletes old textbooks or religious books, and the translations become very patriarchal. So I'm very interested in these records, and that's why I also like to show Jesus. There's some beautiful pictures of Jesus holding what's called a golden right-angled triangle, and that triangle, it's not the 3, 4, 5 triangle of Pythagoras. It's actually a triangle that's in the center of this pyramid. So the pyramids in Egypt, which he visited, have a very special triangle based on what we call the golden ratio, and that's the symbol for the golden ratio. And the golden ratio is also in the symbol of the fishes. So when we have two circles that intersect through each other's center, they form that yoni shape, this vesica Pisces. So it means the bladder of the fish, the vessel of the fish. So in astrology, every 2,000 years, 7 planets line up. So 2,000 years ago, the 7 planets lined up in the constellation of Pisces. So his symbol was also the sign of the fishes. Yeah, so, and you can see here that his initiation is expressed by this beautiful cross, which I believe it to be the prime number cross. The atoms of all creation are aligned in a particular cross. So to have that in his field shows us that he had conquered the lower self. So I want to read a little bit. I want to give you an idea how this book flows. We know that Jesus' disciple John that baptized him. So St. John around 70 AD, so 70 years after Jesus' birth, these 4 Gospels, the 4 Gospels that we know in the Bible, like Mark, Luke and John, they were written 70 years after. They weren't actually written during Christ's time. So we have the 4 Gospels of like Mark and that. These are all written in this account here. Yeah, so there is a story of the prodigal son in chapter 144. I won't read the prodigal son, that's one of my favorite stories, but the one that I'd like to read is in chapter 24. So Jesus is traveling in India, and he spends 4 years at a temple with the masters at Jagannath. Juggernaut means like the universe, so he's at one of the world temples. And so someone comes up to him and explains the caste system, because Jesus wasn't aware that in India there was a caste system. You're born into 4 classes of people, and some were superior than others. And so this is a really good story where Jesus gets driven out of India. But I just want to read that out for you to understand. So this is chapter 24. The Brahmic doctrine of caste. Jesus repudiates it and teaches human equality. That's pretty much the essence of what I'm going to read, that Jesus is teaching equality, not division. The priests are offended and drive him from the temple. And then he abides with the Sudras and teaches them. They're the black people. Okay, so for 4 years, the Jewish boy abode in the temple of Jagannath. One day he sat among the priests and said to them, "Pray, tell me all about your views of castes. Why do you say that all men are not equal in the sight of God?" A master of their laws stood forth and said, "The Holy One, whom we call Brahm, made men to suit himself, and men should not complain. In the beginning days of human life, Brahm spoke, and 4 men stood before his face. Now from the mouth of Brahm, the first man came." So from the mouth of Brahm, we have from the mouth, which is the source of God, of the Creator, from the mouth of Brahm, the first man came, and he was white, was like the Brahm himself. A Brahmin he was called. So that was the highest you could be. And he was high and lifted up above all else who stood. He had no need to toil. So this white person was basically the priest. And he was called the priest of Brahm, the Holy One to act for Brahm in the affairs of earth. But the second man was red, and from the hand of Parabrahm he came, and he was called the Kshatriya. So we've got red man who's coming out of the hand of God, and he was the ruler, the kings, the warriors, and his job was to protect the white, the priests, because they were the holy ones. And then from the inner parts of the Parabrahm, so we're talking about in the organs, came another man. The third man came. He was called the Vizya, and he was to toil. He was meant to look after the flocks and the herd. So he was like a worker, because in every social system of society, we need to have people that are learned, educated, but we need people who build the road. So these were the people that had to build the road. So they were the red man. Oh no, he was the yellow man. But then the lowest like the lepers of society, the fourth man, he was from the feet. He emerged from the feet of the Parabrahm, and he was black, and he was called the Sudras, one of low caste. So Sudras, in my language, Arabic, Sud means black, and that's where we get the word Sudan, where the black people live, Sud. So the Sudras is the servant of the race of men. He has no rights that others need to respect. He may not even hear the Vedas being read. I mean, this is their Bible. I mean, how can you define humans as such a low caste? So he was a servant. But anyway, Jesus repudiates it, and he says, the Parabrahm is not a God of justice and of right, for with his own strong hand he has exalted one above another. And so this just goes on. And basically it says, and the priests were angered by his words which Jesus spoke. They rushed upon him, seized him, and they were just about to kill him. So Jesus is on the run. They're trying to scourge him and whip him. So these are just beautiful stories. But the question is whether or not this story is true, that this knowledge, this parable, this story of the caste system is being given to us by certain people, like preachers in America who had visited Ladakh, and they were claiming that this is being channeled from the Akashic records, and that these were written 2,000 years ago. So when we say these are from the records, the vibrational library, they were copied from ancient sources. They weren't just made up. So so I really like this inquiry into the nature of the authenticity of Christian literature, because we study Buddhism, but in Buddhism they say there is no God. God is not a he with a beard and he's sitting on a throne, and the devil's not this male figure that oppresses. They're saying in Buddhism that Jesus met the masters. They're saying everything is consciousness, everything is all connected, but God is not in the image of a person. So then we have the idea of God as a personified or not personified. So whatever the truth is, the only way to find out what truly is that we have to take responsibility and do the research, do the meditation, look after our bodies and our health, and keep researching and studying and praying. In a way, what we're really talking about when Jesus is teaching people how to pray, he's saying pray to the Father and the Mother, the Abba and the Amma that reside above and within. And I think that's really what all this is about. Whether it's not, we're not disputing anything about the authenticity of the current Bible or these ancient Bibles, and we're here to learn how to pray within and to connect the macrocosm above with the microcosm within. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you.